do we have other questions coming in? Yeah.
One thing people might be wondering about is the initial alerts that went out. So we're pleased that the alerts did go out and people were getting alerts on their cell phones. I got a couple of alerts on my cell phone. There's different ways that alerts come through us. They come through apps, or they can come through the WIA system, which is the wireless emergency alert system. And so those are kind of two different methods that you get through your phones. You might get a couple of alerts on your phone for it. The apps tend to be a little bit faster than the WIA system, but they're both there. The initial alert that came out, at least the one that I got with, I think it was a 6.2. But now we see it's a 5.1. And so this is normal. The alerting system really tries to get the information out as quickly as possible, and that is to alert people so in case there's danger of shaking. And because it's so quick, you only have just a few seconds of data on just a couple of few stations, that sometimes it can overestimate or underestimate a little bit that the magnitude. In this case, it was an overestimation, but then very quickly afterwards, within seconds, maybe a minute, we knew the actual magnitude. And so the final magnitude, now we've had a person actually look at it, and so it's a magnitude 5.2. But again, these things can happen, and it's all because we're trying to get the alerts out just as quickly as possible with very little data to save lives. So, but the alert was successful. Like I said, I received it before shaking was felt, and I think many others did as well.
I can confirm, I looked it up, the last magnitude 5 is exactly the same size as this, a 5.2. That was August 9th of last year, and as I said, up near the Grapevine area. This area that we're looking at right now around the Elsinore Fault, it is a place, just take a 50 miles or 50 kilometers around this location. I can see there's a magnitude 4 just about every year somewhere within that region. Quite a few of them are associated with the Elsinore Fault. Looking quickly, trying to see if I see previous ones, how close in time. Yeah, no, I can't quickly come up with that. Alan, why don't you give it quickly in Spanish, and then we can repeat since we now have a lot more people on.
All right. Yes, we've been listening to Dr. Lucy Jones speak about this 5.2 earthquake that hit a little after 10 o'clock this morning, a 5.2 in the area near Julian and Ramona. If you're familiar with that, this is northeast of San Diego proper. Christine and I both grew up in the San Diego area, myself in the Poway area. So my father has said that it was the worst earthquake that he had felt. And we are also getting word that people in Orange, Newport Beach, and Chino Hills also felt it quite strongly. And many of the people are saying that it was shaking for quite some time. Which, we know sometimes it's a quick jolt, but this was much longer.
Yeah, my family lives along the beach, so quite a distance from East County. Yes. And my dad, they've lived in San Diego since the early 60s. He's a Vietnam vet, so he doesn't get too spooked. And he said it was pretty scary. They're in a 2-story home, so you feel it a little more. Yep. He said the house was really rattling. He actually went down and moved the cars out of the garage because he was afraid things that they have, in the garage could fall on them or they could lose power. Kind of scrolling through my social media feed, which of course is filled with all my friends from back home, all of them saying, wow, that was really intense. That was much stronger than we felt in many, many years. People did get the alert just a few seconds before. It's not a lot of time, but it does give you at least a quick couple of seconds to get into place. And Dr. Lucy Jones saying it's belonging to the Elsinore Fault, which is part of the San Andreas system. And she did say we're seeing robust aftershocks. And I think Mark at the desk has some new information as well.
Yeah, Amy and Christine, you were both discussing
for the Elsinore.
Felt it. We are now getting that data, and this earthquake was felt all over Southern California, including areas all the way up here in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. If we come out to my screen, I can show you their Did You Feel It Shake Map page is beginning to populate with data. Now, what you're looking at here, the epicenter right here, as we said, near Julian in northeast of San Diego, a 5.2 hit about 10:08, so about 22 minutes ago. Now, all of these blue squares that you see here, these are all instances of people self-reporting that they felt the quake. The strongest is this dark blue here, which makes sense in metropolitan San Diego, but you can see even all the way out here just north of Mexicali, all through Murrieta and then through Riverside, even in the San Fernando Valley and in the South Bay, parts of Orange County as well. We are getting instances of people reporting it. Those light blue squares mean very light shaking. The white squares you see here they barely felt it at all, but you can see even parts of the San Fernando Valley, parts here of right between LA County and the Inland Empire felt it as well. So very, very large amount of people felt this as it propagated out from the epicenter. Going back and looking at the page where all of these earthquakes are happening, you can see the blue one in the center of your screen. That's the primary quake that we were talking about here. Right here, this one. And then the rest, those red ones you see all around here, these are all smaller aftershocks in the range of about 2.9, 2.5. And then this orange one was actually reported yesterday, a 3.3, could be a foreshock. Seismologists are going to look at that. But one more piece of data that I want to show you here is also this waveform. You can see these are the concentric circles, the rings of that earthquake as it was felt all throughout Southern California. So a lot of data seismologists are going through right now, as Dr. Lucy Jones talked about. She said the last magnitude 5.2 we had was August 9th of last year near the Grapevine. And so they're going to keep looking at the data from this one. Don't have any reports of damage yet from down there in San Diego.
All right. Thank you, Mark. We want to get back to Dr. Lucy Jones, who is involved in a news conference here.
A foreshock to this earthquake. There was a 3.5 yesterday afternoon. The chance that this 5.2 would itself be a foreshock to something bigger is still the same. It's about 5% chance. So it means, 19 out of 20 times what you're seeing is the biggest one. 1 out of 20 times it's followed by something bigger. Let's do a bit of a recap, though, just because we have a whole lot more people than when we first said it in English. We had a magnitude 5.2 earthquake at 10:08 this morning. It seems to be associated with the Elsinore Fault. It's very near the town of Julian. The depth is relatively deep. It's about 13 kilometers below the surface of the Earth. But that's often what you see with on the big faults like the San Jacinto and the Elsinore Fault. The Elsinore Fault is part of the San Andreas system. There's several parallel faults: the San Andreas, the San Jacinto, the Elsinore, and then the Newport Inglewood. And they get progressively less active as you move farther to the west. So this one is definitely, on average, has fewer big earthquakes than the San Andreas or the San Jacinto Fault. It was felt over a very large area. We can see the ground motions recorded by our instruments, suggesting it would have been felt from San Diego or even south of the border up into Los Angeles. That's sort of what you would expect for a 5.2. I mean, a 5.2 is telling you how much energy is released. If you want to talk about what you feel, that's described by intensity. Intensity 3 would be a level where people sitting quietly notice it, those who are moving around wouldn't. And that definitely seems to describe what we had here in Pasadena. And I think, so it could have been felt out to a pretty wide area. Right on top of it, it would have been pretty strong shaking, probably approaching what's called intensity 7. That intensity 6 to 7 is usually what you see on top of a 5. And I'm going to qualify that right now, but given that it's 13 kilometers away from everybody, because it's 13 kilometers deep, probably maybe intensity 6 would be what we would have seen right on top of it. That will throw objects off of shelves, but really won't be doing any damage to a normal California building. It is intensity 5 is usually described as when everybody gets frightened, but that also implies that they don't have a lot of experience with earthquakes. So it's there's nothing about it that we see at this point that's surprising, but it would be, there shouldn't be structural damage. If there is, it's in a pretty bad building. There would be things displaced off of shelves. I would think that Julian has got a lot of, things thrown off of shelves in their shops, for instance. Farther away, it really would just be a matter of being felt. There is a question also about tsunami. As long as the earthquake is on land, you're not going to be seeing tsunami. You have to have the fault under the water, displacing the shape, changing the shape of the ocean floor is how you create a tsunami. In rare cases, you can do that with just a landslide, but you aren't going to trigger a big landslide enough to cause any sort of tsunami until you're over magnitude 7. So there's really no question about tsunamis before about magnitude 7 level.
Thank you, Lucy. I have a question that maybe other people are wondering about. Several folks from our office were in a Zoom meeting when the shake alert came across, and folks who were up in Pasadena felt the quake before I felt it, and I'm further south from them. So I'm wondering if one of you can talk about why some areas feel earthquakes sooner than others.
It's probably not sooner, but perhaps at a stronger level. You want to take that one on, Kate, or no? You just come in. Okay.
Just got here. I don't know the question.
The way in which people feel things is very dependent on where they're sitting, how much they're moving around, and the wave. It isn't just one moment, right? The wave comes through, and it begins with smaller waves, and the P wave is always smaller than the S wave, and you get variations even within that because the waves are bouncing around in the earth off of different rocks, and you get a reverb going on, and it can be very location specific. So people might have felt in Pasadena an earlier part of the wave, Emily, and you didn't feel it until some stronger secondary thing came in. Perhaps they were seeing some they might have been feeling part of the P wave and you didn't feel it to the S wave, or there could have been other sorts of variations like that. It's you really can't tell that easily.
Okay, we want to go now to Holly and Julian, which is right near the epicenter of this quake. Holly, can you hear us okay?
Hi, I hear you fine.
So first off, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Amy and I both are San Diego natives, so we're familiar with where you're calling from. Can you explain what the quake felt like?
It was a pretty strong one, and it was loud. I usually get earthquakes at home, and I'm the day bartender here at Post 468, and I was behind the bar, and the glasses and the bottles started moving a little bit, and a few things fell from up top. So I ran out of here real quick out into the back patio and outside.
Yeah, we, Christine and I have both been trying to go through our social media with our friends that are in San Diego, and so many of them are saying that this is the worst one that they've ever felt and that it was really, really long.
It was. Now, my brother called me, and he said that it was a 6.7 out of Ramona Estates. He was down there in the Ramona, which is about, 25, 27 miles away. I don't know if that's
I think
true
it was the initial,
yeah,
and then
they've
they changed
downgraded it.
Yes.
But we were looking, and there was a quake near you yesterday as well. Did you feel that one? It wasn't as severe, but it did register.
It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. Yep, we felt that one, and there was a couple of aftershocks after this one here today.
So you felt aftershocks?
Yeah, I felt it was outside. I felt them. Yeah.
And, to hear, I mean, if you've been in California for any length of time and when people are saying this is the worst one they've ever felt, that's kind of surprising.
Yes, I've lived in California for about full 45 years and up here in Julian for at least 40 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And are you hearing from any of your friends and neighbors that people have had any damage, or has it mostly just been things, falling off a shelf, things shaking around?
I'm setting up for work at the moment, so I've been putting my phone on mute so that I can get stuff done, and talk to you folks. But I'll find that out after I open.
And did any of your bottles actually fall and break, or they just kind of rattled on the shelf?
We have this one, way up top we have funky old bottles of stuff and decanters. This one fell down. I'm going to go back into the bar area now. This one fell down. It's about 2 feet tall, and it's called Akadama wine. And it's from Japan. Somebody brought it from Tokyo, Japan. and it fell down, and it landed on the bottom, and it landed on the rubber mat that we have down here, and it didn't break.
Oh, wow.
It's a really thick bottle, yeah, but it didn't break. No, as far as I can tell right now, nothing broke.
Well, I can tell that your nerves are rattled, but it sounds as though, at least damage-wise, hopefully we're, okay with this and we don't see any damage down there in San Diego.
I hope not.
Yes, yes. And what we are hearing is that 28,000 people have reported feeling this earthquake. So you are one of many, Holly.
Oh, yeah. I know a lot of my friends have, because I can feel my phone buzzing in my back pocket. And I know everybody's calling to say what happened. So it is kind of a big deal right now. And hopefully the aftershocks will stay low.
Exactly. This is, there's a 5% chance, what Dr. Lucy Jones says is that when you have an earthquake like this, that this is the foreshadowing. But we do know that there was a foreshadowing shock yesterday, 3.5, and so that was probably the precursor for what was coming today. So.
Yeah, and earlier we were listening to Dr. Lucy Jones, and she talked about this being along the Elsinore Fault, which is actually part of the San Andreas system, which anybody who lives in California, you know all about the San Andreas Fault because it runs up and down our state. But this one runs northwest to southeast. She said that we've seen those robust aftershocks. And she said there have been a couple of 5s over the last, 2-3 decades in this area. So not completely uncommon. But the one thing we keep seeing in our text messages, I keep getting more from friends and family saying that, a lot of times we just have like one big jump, right? One big jolt, or like kind of like a rolling motion. And this almost felt like people were being shaken, which is why I think it was more powerful, at least in the way people felt it, than other quakes.
Well, it was 13 kilometers below the surface. And, it's interesting, Holly, and I don't know if you can talk about this. We have had earthquakes around this size. Holly is gone. Well, we have had earthquakes that are around this size, and sometimes it's really remarkable how different they feel. And it all depends on how far below surface it is. But, Christine, you and I both, I grew up in Poway, and it was very close for people that aren't familiar with the area. Poway is not too far from the Ramona area. It's a little more west, but certainly close enough, and people were certainly feeling it. And Mark, you've been getting more information as well.
To talk about feeling it, the USGS Did You Feel It map has now exploded with data. People from all across Southern California are reporting feeling this. If you come onto my screen, I can actually show you these squares. They have now blanketed the entire region. Each one of those blue, green, yellow, or red squares is someone who has reported, or perhaps multiple hundreds of people reporting that they have felt this quake. Now, what's startling is we have not seen colors like this in quite some time. If I zoom in here, this is the epicenter of the quake here in that Julian area. Normally, smaller earthquakes, they generate all of these blue type squares. This is very light or light shaking, but green is moderately felt, and you can see it all around the epicenter here, even out to the border. And then we're seeing some yellows here, which is strong shaking, and red, very severe shaking. So there were certainly people near the epicenter that have now reported feeling this, and then looking at how far up into the LA County area. We're actually seeing in the Kern County area and Santa Barbara County, there are people reporting it out there, feeling it in Barstow as well. This is virtually all of Southern California. Every single county that we have has felt it. And then even in Mexico, you can see down here, there are reports in Ensenada that there are people reporting light to very light shaking, but all across the border here in Tijuana as well. So hundreds of thousands of people certainly felt this earthquake today. One bit of good news we had from LA County fire and LA City fire, no reports of any damage in our area, but San Diego fire, we have not gotten any information from them yet. But because of this red square here, this orange square here, that is severe to very strong shaking felt by someone who reported it at the epicenter. And we know that there are some properties that are out there. Let's see if I can go to my right map here and see and zoom in. This is the satellite view, and you can see that these are all sort of properties out here. These look like homes that are actually not far from the epicenter. The good news is that someone actually was able to report that they felt it, which means that they have internet service or power. But there certainly were people that live in this area, although it is remote. It's near Julian. You can see it's quite far from the city of San Diego, but people felt it everywhere, Amy and Christine.
My parents are along the coast, and one thing that everybody thinks of with earthquakes is, oh no, could this mean a tsunami? Could this trigger a tsunami? And Dr. Lucy Jones brought up that no, the earthquake would actually have to be along the ocean floor to disrupt the ocean floor to cause a tsunami, or it would have to be so severe that, so there's no tsunami risk at this point, which is good. But we do want to go to another north coastal city in Carlsbad. We have Caroline Bull on the phone. Hi, Caroline, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can. I'm from Carlsbad, and we definitely felt a very violent jolt, and it lasted about 10 seconds, and our whole entire building was swaying as well, and it was the biggest earthquake I've felt since the Loma Prieta quake and the Northridge quake. I was in town for both of those, and we just don't get earthquakes in San Diego, and like you said, we're along the coast, and it did temporarily knock out cell service here in Carlsbad, and we're, a good 30 miles away. So that was the biggest earthquake I've felt in a long time, and I'm from the Bay Area, and I'm used to a lot of earthquakes, and this was a big, violent jolt.
Well, Caroline, you said your building was shaking. Give us an idea. What kind of building are you in?
We're in a 4-unit condo building that's 3 stories high, and it was definitely swaying for a good 5 to 10 seconds. And all my neighbors, their glass was shaking, their bathrooms, the mirrors and everything were shaking. It was just one long, violent jolt, and no one has ever felt anything like that here in San Diego County.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of that, Caroline, as Christine and I are both from the San Diego area, and so many of our friends have been posting that this is the worst one that they've felt. Did you also, with a lot of earthquakes, you kind of hear that roar for a while? Did you hear that as well?
No, and that was what was really strange. And then also we didn't feel the aftershocks either, it was just the one big violent jolt, and it was just really surprising because we're just like, that was an earthquake, and that was a big one. And then that the epicenter was so far away from the coast was also really surprising, and it did knock out our cell service for a good 20 minutes, which also I've never had that happen either.
Yeah, and that makes you uneasy, or your family members too, when they're trying to get a hold of you. And I'm texting with my friend Jen, who's in Solana Beach, which is just a little south of you, but also along the coast. And she said in their office they had books, fall off the shelves. And she said that she's from the Bay Area like you. She was up there for the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, and she felt that felt bigger to her. So, everybody has varying scales, but it definitely, on the coast where you are, was rattling people and knocking their books off the shelves. And now, did you get the warning on your phone ahead of time? Are you set up for that? Did you receive the earthquake warning?
Yeah, I did get the shake alert. I did get it, and I was surprised because that's the first one I've gotten since I signed up for that thing a year ago. So,
how much time were you given? Was it just like a second or two?
Yeah. It was very, very brief, and all my neighbors got it too. And so, after that violent shake, like my phone, our cell service went out, but then one of my other phones on a different carrier had service, and my phone was just blowing up for my neighbors and everyone else that I know in this area, saying, did everyone feel that? And then my son, who lives closer to downtown San Diego, said that was the craziest earthquake he's ever felt. And we're still trying to figure out what's going on. And luckily, we don't see any damage around here, and we're not hearing of any damage, which, luckily our building's built up the code. But this was a big one.
Well, and that's really where
aftershocks.
Yeah, and that's really where California does it right. We have such great earthquake retrofitting or new buildings, how they're built. Like this studio here, I remember when I first came here, we had an earthquake and it felt kind of strange, and we actually have the building can kind of roll with the quake, which they're now doing with new construction. So had you had this size earthquake in a city center like we saw in another area, in another country that maybe doesn't have the same type of building codes, it could have been very bad. So that's when we're really lucky that we build up to code and we build buildings like hers, 4 stories tall, that can withstand that kind of shaking.
Yes, and
no, absolutely. It took the impact and did everything it was supposed to do. So.
And did you feel the shaking yesterday, that 3.5 yesterday afternoon around 3 o'clock?
No, I didn't at all, and neither did anyone in my family. So, I mean, this is the one that everyone felt because it was a big one.
Yes, yes, definitely. Wow. Well, we're certainly glad that you're okay and that you had no damage. And it sounds like you and all of your friends that felt it are doing okay. Of course, you're a little rattled. We understand that. Unfortunately, that is one of the side effects of these, figuratively and literally, we get a little shaken up sometimes.
Yeah, it is unnerving. I mean, we always say, like, we're Californians, we sleep through them.
Yes.
But at the same time, when you have one, I remember there was one when I was pregnant with my son and I was in Palm Springs and it really shook the house. And, it was that moment of, oh gosh, they've been warning about this and now here it is. I think we always feel that. Is this going to be the big one? So now we just have kind of a breakdown of the earthquake. We now know it's a 5.2. It was originally listed at a 6.2 and they downgraded it.
Yes, and the location actually changed as well. Originally, we were hearing it was in the San Diego Estates, which is in Ramona. It's a little community in Ramona, but it now has been said that it was closer to Julian, and it was a 5.2. It struck just at 10:08 this morning. It was 13 kilometers below the surface. Certainly, people have been feeling it all over. We've heard some 28,000 people have felt it, and many of them were saying it was really rattling for quite some time in Orange, Newport Beach, Chino Hills, and of course, all along the coast. We also want to mention that train service was canceled between San Clemente and Oceanside. We've been talking to people that have felt this in this area. So trains have been stopped, I'm sure, as they check the lines, the rails, and make sure everything is okay to then continue train service. So we'll, of course, stay on top of that for you.
Yeah, because the Surfliner, the Metrolink that goes through there is right along the cliff because we've had interruption from service because of landslides. So it's not just, we're going to cancel service because we think there might be another earthquake. It's also debris, rocks, anything that would come down from those hillsides, which can be unstable, as we've seen, which would then go on the track. So they've canceled that. And that's, that is a heavily used line. So that's going to inconvenience a lot of people. Governor Newsom just putting out a statement saying he is working with local emergency response crews. They are still assessing damage. So we haven't gotten any sort of word yet as to whether there was any injuries or damage. At least the people that we've spoke to over the phone say things were rattled, some things fell off the shelf, but it doesn't sound like we're seeing any major damage. But of course, that takes time, and there's no official word from the San Diego Fire Department, but LA Fire saying things up here look okay.
Yes, and I'm just hearing that San Diego Police and the San Diego County Sheriff's Department have had no reports of any injuries or damage. We also are hearing from the Julian fire station that there were no reports of damage at this point. They have not received any word, which is, of course, the best news because so many people have been saying that this is the worst one that they have felt. My own father, who lives down there, also said, we moved to California, I believe he got there maybe early 70s, and for him to say that this is the worst one that he's felt since then, we know that it was pretty strong, but he did not tell me of any damage. I've been trying to text him again. I heard that he was okay, and I think now everybody's been calling him to make sure he's okay. So, but which is, of course, the best news. And your own father down in San Diego along the coast felt it quite strong as well.
Yeah, and in a two-story home, you feel it a little more. And I remember growing up being down there during the Northridge quake, and we even felt that down there. So he did go out and check the pool because we've had a crack in the pool before when we've had a severe quake. But he said this is, really, it was really scary for him. And, he's a grown man, a Vietnam vet, but he said it really got them shaking. And I think that was the one thing that everybody's pointed out who's sent me text messages or I've seen on social media, that it was just constant shaking, not just one jolt or, a rolling motion. And I think that's when people get really scared. In fact, we spoke with a girl, Danielle, down in Orange County. She was in her car, which usually I've found if I'm driving or in my car, I don't feel it.
Yes.
But she felt it, and everybody in the parking lot did, and they all kind of came out, as we Californians do.
Yes.
It's going to be the topic of conversation for today and probably tomorrow as well. Did you feel it? Did anything break? But it looks like at this point, we are not seeing any major damage, which is good, and also speaks to the way we construct our buildings.
Retrofitting, exactly. And I think one of the things that I've noticed here lately is that when it starts shaking, you're just wondering, okay, is the shaking about to end? Or is this getting ready to get worse?
Getting worse.
And so that's when it's so important to get under a table. Back in the day when we were young girls, everyone said, oh, get in the doorway. Well, now we know that they want you to get under a strong table. But also, we've all been reminded over and over, and maybe this is your reminder today, that you need to have that kit. I have to admit, I went out and I bought a kit. One for the house, one for the car.
Enough for 3 days, they say. Like 3 days to be self-sufficient with first aid, with water, with food, assuming you don't have power. And the one thing I always found interesting, I remember when I was doing a baby class here in LA, 14 years ago when my son was a baby, and the instructor had taught moms during the Northridge quake.
Yeah.
And she said the only parents who were injured were those who immediately tried to run to their children's room because they fell over, they broke limbs, that sort of thing, just because they were not, they couldn't stay on their 2 feet.
Exactly.
And so this is also a good reminder when something like this happens, our instincts are to run and see if our kids or our elderly family members are okay. But Dr. Lucy Jones would tell us, stay where you are, let the shaking, the rolling subside, and then go assess what's going on.
Exactly. That is the best advice, although sometimes it's hard, as you said,
easier
to follow
said
it.
than done, of course.
Because I have been guilty of that myself, to run towards my kids to make sure that they are okay. But the best news that you mentioned, Christine, is that we have had no reports of any injuries or damage at this point, even though people have been saying it is the strongest quake that they have felt. Mark Liu, also on the breaking news desk, you've been following this as well.
Yeah, I've been digging more into the data of people reporting to the U.S. Geological Survey whether or not they felt it. There's a way to get an even more refined look at how many people felt it. We saw those large squares that I was showing you. There is a feature on the U.S. Geological Survey where you can really refine it down to individual areas. All of these tiny little squares, these are all of the areas across Southern California where people felt it, and you can see it is virtually everywhere. And these blue squares is light shaking down here near the epicenter. You can see some yellow squares, green squares as well. That's moderate to severe. And then, of course, these red ones here, this is very severe. But I want to just give you an example of just to show you of really how almost everyone felt it, because if you do an overlay here, these squares show where people reported feeling it. This is an overlay of the general population density of where people live in Southern California, the black areas. So you can see it almost identically mirrors where people felt it. So you can see virtually anywhere anybody was living in Southern California this morning, they felt this quake. You can see just how much it matches up. So certainly this quake felt all over Southern California. Thankfully, it's just one of those earthquakes that we've had in Southern California where we feel it, but we don't have to report any damage, no injuries. So it's a part of life in Southern California. And then one other bit of data that I want to show here is, again, this is the swarm of aftershocks. If I zoom in here, the blue one, that's the one I've highlighted. That's the 5.2, the major earthquake. And then, of course, these red ones, these are all of the aftershocks in the area. This very likely was a foreshock. This was yesterday, a 3.3. And then I just noticed there was also another quake right about the same time. This is a 3.5 in Borrego Springs, just about 5 to 6 minutes after this one here in Julian. Not sure if it's related. It just could be a coincidence. But again, a lot of data coming in for seismologists to look at from this earthquake that apparently we all felt in Southern California this morning.
Yeah, and we want to go now to Robin Boland. She is with the Julian Chamber of Commerce, and we now know Julian is the epicenter for this quake. Robin, can you hear us?
I absolutely can.
So first off, we just want to ask you, seeing as though you were right there at the epicenter, what did it feel like?
I thought the building I was in was coming down. I'm in a 110-year-old building at Town Hall, and it was shaking, and so much so that I reverted back to childhood and got under my desk. I thought, this is it.
Okay.
It was crazy.
And I imagine that everybody was very nervous.
Yeah, the great thing about a small community is after it happened, I ran outside because I knew some of my family members were nearby, and of course, every car alarm on Main Street was going off, and every business owner and every shopper just flooded the sidewalks with everybody checking on each other, laughing nervously, and just making sure that everybody was okay, yelling down the street, "Are you okay? I'm okay."
Robin, stay with us for just a moment. We do want to take a moment to welcome our CBS 2 KCAL on Channel 2 and Channel 9. We are now simulcasting at 11 a.m., bringing both stations the latest information about this 5.2 earthquake that struck in the Julian area at 10:08 this morning. On the phone with us right now is Robin Boland from the Julian Chamber of Commerce. Robin, I want to let you keep on going about what you felt. You know, a lot of people have been talking about the difference in this earthquake compared to others. Now, clearly it's not the biggest one, but for so many people, it has felt like the biggest one. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so many people obviously feeling like it's, or being their first earthquake that they've felt. I grew up in the Bay Area, so earthquakes were just sort of funny. But it being an old buildings, a historic town, it really felt like, honestly, I did believe if it kept going, I was just standing there going, this building's not going to withstand this. I was very, very scared. And talking to my daughter-in-law, she felt like it was super fast, and I literally felt like it went on for minutes. It was just very frightening. And everybody in town seemed to react to it. Again, everybody running out to the sidewalks on Main Street, Julian, which we are a very small little town. And so everybody was just outside checking on each other, and all the car alarms were going off, and everybody just was, it was so great that the first word out of everyone's mouth is, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And so everybody seemed to be okay, just shaken, because everything on this Main Street is pretty historic. So the building's really, really rattled.
Yeah, and those of us in San Diego who grew up there, and also people here in LA, we know Julian for its pies and going apple picking and doing all of that. It's such a quaint little community. And what about in terms of damage? I know you said the building you were in, city, like a city building. Is it a city building?
Well, we're unincorporated, but it is the town hall, and it's 110 years old. So
so a historic building. And did you see any damage at all?
No, I haven't. By coincidence, there's a plumber here doing some other work, and so I asked him before he leaves to, go underneath the building just to make sure none of the pipes were broken. We recently just had our porch all redone, so I feel safe about that, but it's good to just check and see if anything kind of shifted down there. So he's going to do that for me before he leaves.
Yeah, and I do want to mention to our viewers right now that we are looking at some video from a liquor store in Julian where you can see some bottles that have actually fallen off shelves.
Sure.
Remarkably, it's not as many as you would think, but we definitely see some that have tipped over, some have fallen onto the ground. But, based on what everyone has been saying about this being so strong, it's surprising that we're not seeing more.
Yeah, and Robin, we're going to let you go because we actually have another person on the phone to talk to us, but we just want to say thank you for calling in. I know how scary this can be, and we appreciate just your perspective, because I know a lot of people here in LA have family in San Diego, so they're worried about them, especially if they live near Julian, but it sounds like you and the community are safe and you are okay.
We are, and thank you for caring about Julian. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you guys have some of the best apple pie, so.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
See you soon. Take care.
Wow. And we're just, continuing to see the broken glass on the floor here in this liquor store. Again, this is in Julian, where that 5.2 earthquake struck at 10:08 this morning. What we have learned is that it was 13 kilometers below the surface. And yesterday, in fact, there was a 3.5 that struck around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But, as we've been talking to different people throughout the morning, hearing from people, Christine Lazar and myself, Amy Johnson, we are here with you at 11 o'clock. We both grew up in the San Diego area, Christine along the coast, myself in Poway. I heard from my dad while we were on the air. I was texting with him to make sure that he is okay. He lives near the Ramona area, between Poway and Ramona. And my father and mother moved to the area in the early 70s and have experienced plenty of earthquakes, but he says this is the worst one he has felt in all of those years.
Yeah, and we want to check in now with Dylan Carnero. I believe he took this video at this liquor store in Julian. Dylan, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, I'm right here.
And so this is your video. Is this the liquor store you were in when the earthquake happened?
Yes, ma'am.
So talk to us about what happened and what you saw.
So, caught me at a bad time, but I was just about to use the restroom and everything, so I was in there. And it started, like, the earthquake started happening, everything started shaking. And I just hear, like, consecutive, like, 3 to 4 different, like, bursts and, like, pops and everything of different bottles. And I was like, it was more so my goal, obviously, to get outside and away from buildings. But there was one final, like, there was a total of 4 damages and everything like that, yeah.
And it was just bottles coming off the shelves, that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah, top shelf bottles, of course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Had to be.
Did you have people in the store when it happened, and how did they react?
No, thank God. It was just me. I just locked up for the quick second, so it was quote-unquote perfect timing, if anything.
Yeah. And you've never had bottles like this falling off the shelves like this in the past earthquakes?
Oh, so I've been in Julian for like 15 years, and I've been working here for about 5. And this is like definitely the biggest one I've ever encountered for sure.
Did you feel the one yesterday?
I did. So I was like thinking it was going to be like the same deal, so I wasn't too worried about it. I was still obviously like, what's that one? Certain word that I can't figure out right now. But yeah, I was just thinking it was going to be another small one, but yeah, I did feel that one.
And what are you hearing? You know, Julian's a very small and you know, tight-knit community. Are you hearing from friends and family, other store owners, what they're seeing in terms of damage, if there is any?
I got like a fair amount of personal phone calls of saying like, "Yo, are you okay?" And just like a bunch of Julian residents, like in different neighborhoods. The store across the street at Jack's. I haven't gone and checked yet. Obviously, still cleaning up here, but I guess something about their roof collapsing a little bit or something, but I don't know much about any other businesses.
Okay, well, we're glad you're okay, although I'm sure your nerves are rattled, and I'm sorry about some of your merchandise there. That's never easy. It's not an easy time to be a small business owner.
No, definitely.
Yeah, but in terms of other quakes you felt, this definitely felt a little stronger than you're used to.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, 15 years in Julian, and this is the hardest one I've felt in my life.
Wow. Well, you can only imagine. The sounds of all those bottles rattling must have just been, you know, really incredible.
Yeah, it was probably a good thing you were in the bathroom, because you wouldn't want to be, you know, stalking or standing in one of those aisles when the bottles come down. So we're certainly glad you're okay, although I imagine you'll be rattled for the rest of the day.
No, yeah, definitely. It's, my heart's still a little pounding, and, you know, just for the sake of the day, a little tired of it. It's not helping the Red Bull I took earlier, too. So that was
yeah.
It's all adding up, you know.
Yeah, that gets your heart rate going. Well, Dylan, thanks so much for joining us. And again, if you're just joining us here on KCAL News, a 5.2 centered near Julian in East San Diego County along the Elsinore Fault, which is part of the San Andreas system. And we've seen some robust aftershocks, according to Dr. Lucy Jones. We do want to let people know that Metrolink service has been canceled between San Clemente and Oceanside as they assess any damage to the tracks and make sure that that's safe. The good news is, as Dr. Lucy Jones points out, because I think we along the coast always wonder, could this trigger a tsunami? And again, the earthquake would have to be under the ocean, you know, to disrupt the actual ocean floor, which did not happen. But Amy and I both growing up in San Diego, you know, Californians were not strangers to earthquakes, but both of our fathers who have been there a very long time said that this is one of the most, if not the most, according to your dad, Amy, severe quakes that they've felt. And both of our social media feeds and cell phones are filled with friends who live down there saying people were really concerned. You know, people were really worried that this was going to be the big one that we all hear about. So at this point, though, it looks like the damage we are seeing at least superficial.
Exactly. And, you know, but certainly lots of nerves rattled this morning at 10:08 as this 5.2 quake struck near Julian, about 13 kilometers below the surface, which is why so many people have felt it so much stronger than previous earthquakes, including the one from yesterday, which was, of course, smaller. But we've been hearing from people all over, from Orange, Newport Beach, Chino Hills, all saying that they felt it. I know that my brother-in-law in Chino Hills says that he got the warning. He thought the warning was about 5 seconds before the quake hit. But certainly he said that it was strong enough. You know, he was worried, of course, about my father being so close to the epicenter of this quake. And, you know, so far I have not heard of any damage from my father, but that he is okay. And, you know, it is interesting, Christine, that both of our fathers were there so long, both Vietnam veterans, not wimpy men by any means.
Yes.
And
they've seen a lot.
Yeah, they've seen quite a bit. And they both were rattled by this one because it was so much stronger for them than previous ones. And your dad along the coast, my dad more inland, but they both felt it quite strong.
Yeah, and we talked to one woman in Carlsbad, which, if you're familiar with San Diego, also on the coast, North County, San Diego, so quite, I would say 40 miles probably from Julian. And she said it actually kicked out their cell service for a little while, which can be very disconcerting if your family member's trying to get a hold of you. And she said she was in a, you know, a taller building, like a condo complex, and she said that building really got going. But, you know, I have to say, for all the years that I've experienced earthquakes and, of course, covered earthquakes, I'm always amazed at how well our structures hold up to that kind of shaking.
Exactly.
Because we tend to see these earthquakes in, you know, other countries, other places where they can be devastating, where you have buildings just crumble. But California does do a really good job at retrofitting the older buildings and building the new ones so that they kind of move with the quake as opposed to just kind of staying on the foundation. You know, we should point out, this is always a good time. I'm going to remind myself to be prepared because, as Dr. Lucy Jones always tells us, there is a very small chance, a 5% chance, that the earthquake we have is actually a precursor to a larger quake. Now, it's very rare.
Yes.
And probably the quake that we saw yesterday was the precursor to this quake. But it's a good reminder, you know, to have the things in your house. They always say to be able to be self-sufficient for 3 days.
Yes.
You know, assume that you have no one coming for you for first aid, for food, for shelter,
water,
you know, to have
even
water.
You know, depending on where you are in retrospect to the earthquake, you could lose water. If the pipes break, it could be 3 days, and we know that's the most important. You've got to have good, clean water.
And shoes by your bed. That's the
Yes.
one that I finally did because, you know, you never want things to break. Even just if it's not that bad of a quake, but you have, say, a painting in your room
Yes.
or a picture and it falls down and it's in the middle of the night and you go put your feet down and you step. So, you know, it's always a good idea to slide some shoes or some slippers that have hard soles underneath. But we Californians, we're used to the quakes, which also kind of brings a complacency. And I'm definitely, I have been, you know, have done that.
Guilty of not being
that,
as prepared
yes.
as you should be. And I have to admit, I think it was, I don't know how many years ago, there was another earthquake that's when I did, in fact, get those kits together, one at home and one in the car. But you know, it is always a good reminder to make sure your kit is still good because, you know, water only lasts so long. Now, we do want to remind you, if you are just joining us, a powerful quake that struck just outside of San Diego was felt all the way up to Los Angeles.
Assignment Manager Mark Lewis live at the desk with details. And Mark, you're showing us a number of aftershocks in that area as well.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of data coming into the U.S. Geological Survey. This 5.2 hit in the area of Julian, California. That's to the northeast of city of San Diego, about 40 miles. Hit at about 10:08 this morning. Now, here in Los Angeles and all across Southern California, people felt it. One of the first things we did is actually launch KCAL to go look to make sure if there was any data. KCAL is actually live right now over over LA City Fire Station 88. No damage here, but what we're seeing is what is happening at fire stations all across Southern California. Firefighters, they go into something called earthquake mode, where they check their gear first, they check their station, and then if they feel it's necessary, they will go out into the community and they will check to see if there was any damage in their general neighborhoods. Now, we're about 116 miles or more from the epicenter in the Julian area, so really no reports of any damage in the Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, or Ventura County areas, but firefighters, they still go into this mode either way. Now, as far as feeling it, probably hundreds of thousands of people felt it, and our seismometer, our seismo sensors connected to our seismocam felt it as well. Let me show you that waveform now. I cut you some video from when this came across our seismology camera, our seismocam. You're going to see the waveform if we can bring that
Every
up there.
Earthquake could be
this
a foreshock
actually is
something bigger.
video of
we haven't found any characteristic that says this is
of Lucy Jones here speaking about this. Actually, if you come out to my screen, I'm going to show you instead a map of the earthquake that I wanted to. There's the seismocam that I wanted to talk about right there. You can see these waveforms: Anaheim, Long Beach, Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and underneath the graphic, San Diego, all felt it. You can see in Los Angeles that really long rolling motion on the third seismo monitor there. Lots of people reported this feeling very, very long, going on for a very long time. Now, if you come out to my screen, I'm going to show you where this was and show you the swarm of aftershocks that were actually happening right in the 10, 15 minutes afterwards. So here is San Diego down near the bottom of the screen here, and I'm going to zoom in. This blue dot, that's the primary quake, the 5.2 that happened in Julian at about 10:08, and all of these orange dots to the north here, these are all aftershocks in the realm of about 2.7, 2.9, or 2.5. This one right down here was actually a 3.3 that happened yesterday. There was also another earthquake that was all the way over here in Borrego Springs, right about the same time, about 3.5, probably not related. But this is the waveform map that shows the intensity that as this earthquake emanated out from the epicenter is about 13 kilometers deep. But this really tells the story here. All of these tiny little squares that you see on your screen, these are all individual reports of people who felt it all through Southern California. Now, the light blue, that's very light shaking reported. But for the first time in a while, we are seeing some greens and yellows, especially down here at the epicenter, which is right here, and even some orange and red there. These are all instances of people feeling either very strong or severe shaking. Now, right here, that's the epicenter. That's Julian, California. Do people live out there? There's a community out there. But look at all of the squares that were felt here in the San Diego area, even out here near the Mexicali region, down here in Tijuana, and all across through Orange County. So lots of data coming in. People, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people felt this earthquake, even through the Palm Springs area, up into 29 Palms, Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, Oxnard. So it looks like we all felt this one today. And the good news is, so far, we have not heard any reports of any serious damage. Certainly, we had that video from that liquor store owner, lots of bottles knocked off shelves. I'm certain there were lots of things that were knocked off shelves, probably in the San Diego area, but hopefully no serious structural problems and no injuries yet that we know of.
Which is the best news, Mark. And, you know, we've been talking all morning. Christine and I both growing up in the San Diego area, Christine along the coast, myself in Poway, which is quite near the epicenter here. Originally, they were saying it was in the San Diego Estates, which is in Ramona. But we have since found out that it was actually in Julian, a 5.2. Christine and I have been talking about how so many of our friends have been posting that it is the worst earthquake that they have felt. And I was able to convince one of my friends, Beth, I believe, is on the phone with us. Beth, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, Beth. It's Amy and Christine. Well, I think I'm doing a little better than you. You did post. I saw that this was the worst one. You also, growing up in Poway, you have felt a lot of earthquakes. Give us an idea of where you were and what you felt this morning.
I was just sitting in my office at home, and I had gotten an alert from on my phone right before it happened. And I just I didn't know what it was. I just thought my phone was doing something strange, so I didn't bother with it. And then all of a sudden I heard the rumble, and it just started kind of rolling. And it just kept going on. And usually I just hang out and don't do anything about it. This time I actually went outside because it was kind of scary. So, and I was kind of shaking afterwards for a while because I've never felt it that strong before.
Yeah, and you know, so often, Beth, earthquakes, sometimes it's a big jolt, sometimes it's a rumbling. Did you feel the jolt before the rumbling, or was it just rumbling?
I didn't feel a jolt. I felt it more. I heard more than I felt it, and then it really just kind of picked up, and that's when I decided to go outside. But nothing broke in my house. There was nothing. My husband was actually in La Jolla, and he was on the 8th floor of a building, and he said it really swayed a lot for him. And so, but everything was fine. We're all fine here, and nothing is broken here in the house, no glassware or anything. So we got lucky.
And Beth, you know, of course, this is Christine. I'm here with Amy. I'm also from San Diego, from the Del Mar area. And, you know, the one thing that I'm seeing is everybody's texting one another. Are you okay? Are you okay? Did you have any interruption to cell service? Because we did hear some people had that. And also, what are your friends saying?
I did not have any interruption in cell service. I had actually called my husband. I called 2 of my brothers that are in San Diego as well to see if they were okay. So I didn't have any issues with cell service, but it was like right after, so maybe there could have been a delay or something. Everyone's kind of feeling the same way as I was. They just felt the long rolling rumble of it all, but so far everyone's good that I know.
Well, that's good, because we're looking at some video from a liquor store while you're talking in Julian, where a lot of the bottles came off the shelves and, you know, landed on the floor. So thankfully, everything, it sounds like, is okay where you live, and we're glad that you're okay and that you joined us.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Certainly appreciate it, Beth. And I have to ask you, was this the first time during an earthquake that you actually felt it was long enough that you needed to walk outside?
There was one other time, and it was funny. I can't remember how long ago it was. It had to have been at least 10 or 15 years ago, but I remember the pool. We could see the pool water like lapping over. And so we actually went outside on that one because it was pretty strong. And I can't remember when that was, but it was at our old house. And I remember watching the pool water kind of flopping all over the place. So let's get outside. This is scary.
Yeah. Well, Beth, I'm glad that you are okay, and I certainly appreciate you taking a few minutes to speak with us. I don't often put my friends on the spot like that, but I couldn't resist today. So thanks so much for joining us on the air. I owe you one. Thank you. All right,
and,
take care.
We're going to bring in some other people as well. We're going to get to Ashley Pinnock, but I think she's not on quite yet. We're just going to kind of recap, though, what's going on. If you've missed it or you didn't feel it, although I am seeing reports of even being felt as high as Ventura, north as Ventura. A 5.2 quake just after 10 a.m. The epicenter, East County, San Diego, in Julian. And now we're going to bring in Ashley Pinnock, who I believe felt the earthquake. Oh, we might not have her yet.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, I don't know if that's the case, but we did hear, which I thought was interesting, some interruptions to cell service, which I always worry about because now we're all getting rid of our landlines. And then we hear when there's in this case, I don't think it was an interruption of any sort of like communication devices. It's probably everybody trying to call and reach out to their loved ones at once, which is why they say with things like this, use text messaging versus calling, because text will go through when phone calls don't always go through.
Exactly. And, you know, we often talk about, you know, being prepared for the really big earthquake. And then it's important, I think, to even have a safety person that you call out of state. So everyone in the family calls that family plan, and everyone calls that one person to make sure that they're all okay. But we've been joined by a few people on the phone, and I do believe that we have Ashley Pinnock ready. Is that true, Ashley? Can you hear us? Okay. What we're going to do instead is actually check in with Paul Diano, who has been keeping a close eye on the weather. And of course, Paul, we know that there is no such thing as earthquake weather.
No, there's not.
But we still want to check in with you anyway.
Yeah, we're going to talk about earthquakes here for a couple minutes while we get more people in San Diego set up to speak with. You may be wondering, where exactly did this happen? We'll give you a recap. Orange County, San Diego County will zoom in 2 times here. First, it is just to the north of the 8, and Pine Valley will zoom in a little bit closer. This happened more than an hour ago, so if you saw our map from about 20 minutes ago compared to now, the color has gone from red to yellow. Yellow is 1 hour or later ago is when the earthquake happened. It happened exactly at 10:08. A magnitude 5.2 earthquake happened in inland San Diego County near the town of Julian. Happened along what is known as the Elsinore Fault. The Elsinore Fault rolls into our viewing area. It spreads from Chino Hills all the way south to El Centro and San Diego. It's quite a long fault. There's not much of an earthquake history there, but it is a fault that runs parallel to the San Andreas Fault. Locally in Orange County, it runs just to the east on the far side from the ocean of the Santa Ana Mountains. And the last big earthquake along that fault was a long time ago. It was 1910, where there was a magnitude 6.0. This is the biggest quake along that fault in 115 years. Magnitude 5 or stronger earthquakes happen in California about 2 or 3 times per year. This is about a 100 years of data that we can look at. We get 2 or 3 per year. This would be one of them. A magnitude 6.5 or stronger, which thankfully we are not looking at here. That only happens in California, the whole state, about once every 4 years. Final graphic I want to share with you. This is the strongest quake anywhere in California since we had a similar magnitude 5.2 quake along the Grapevine in southern Kern County on August 9th of last year. We've already seen 8 strong aftershocks. A strong aftershock would be magnitude 2.5 or higher. We've had 8 of those in the past hour. And as with most earthquakes, there is the chance that this one is actually the smaller one and the bigger one is coming. That number has already been reduced from 5% down to 1%. It usually would happen if it happens right after the earthquake. That has not happened. So now there's a very, very, very small chance that this is a foreshock. I'll finish things with this map right here. Inland San Diego County, magnitude 5.2 earthquake. And Mark has been talking about this, that did you feel it part of the USGS website. 37,000 people, guys, have filled out that form and submitted it. It was felt all throughout Southern California, more than 100 miles from where that earthquake happened. Guys, back to you.
And we want to just recap that just after 10 a.m., there was a 5.2 quake in San Diego County, centered near Julian, which is a small town in East County, San Diego, but this quake being felt up and down Southern California, down to Mexico, up even to Ventura County. You're looking here at some video that is from a liquor store in Julian, where you can see some bottles came off the shelves. We spoke with a woman who was working in the Chamber of Commerce building, a historic building. She said it felt like the building was going to crumble around her. Lots of people talking about how this was not a quick earthquake, that it lasted several seconds, and it wasn't that rolling motion that we sometimes feel or a quick jolt, but more of a constant shaking. And we are going to say goodbye to our viewers on CBS 2, but we're going to continue coverage over on KCAL 9. Again, a quake along the Elsinore Fault, which is part of the San Andreas system. Dr. Lucy Jones saying we're feeling robust aftershocks, so a sizable quake. And now we're back on KCAL News talking about this earthquake. I'm joined now by Amy Johnson, both of us San Diego natives.
Yes.
And in between giving you the news right now, we're hearing from many of our friends and family who felt that earthquake. Both of our dads saying it was very severe and some of the worst. Your dad saying the worst quake he's felt since moving to the San Diego area in the early 70s.
Exactly, and he's in an area called Poway, which is very close to that area east of Poway. He actually lives between Poway and Ramona, and initially we were hearing that this was over 6-point earthquake in the San Diego States in the Ramona area. It was then upgraded to a 5.2. I should say the information was upgraded, and it was actually a lower 5.2 that actually happened in the Julian area. We've been hearing from so many people saying that they have felt this one so much stronger, so much longer, and that could be because it was only 13 kilometers below the surface there. And we also know that there was a 3.5 yesterday, that foreshock perhaps. We often hear that there was a 5% chance of the actual earthquake being a foreshock, but that could have been the foreshock yesterday. Now we're hearing that there was in fact another aftershock, maybe as big as a 3.9 that happened at 11:23 this morning. Mark's shaking his head to me right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm monitoring it. All this data coming into the U.S. Geological Survey website, including that aftershock of 3.9 just happened about 6 minutes ago. If you come out to my, well, first thing I want to do is show you the primary earthquake. Our Seismocam caught it. We have some video to show you of when our Seismocam caught that earthquake. If we can show it to you right now, you're going to see all of the sensors in our Southern California network here caught this waveform. Anaheim, Long Beach, Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and San Diego. All of them ended up feeling this earthquake, and it's no surprise it was a 5.2 magnitude earthquake down in the Julian area northeast of San Diego. This is about 40 miles in a straight line to the northeast of the city of San Diego. Struck at about 10:08. But there's been a swarm of aftershocks in the area since that quake hit. Let me take you out to my screen and show you what I'm talking about. This is data straight from the U.S. Geological Survey website. And if you can come out to my computer now, yeah, that's it. We're going to zoom in here and show you. Here's the city of San Diego down in this area. I'm going to zoom in. The blue dot I've highlighted, that's the primary quake this morning at 5.2. And you can see all of those other dots around it here. These are all essentially aftershocks, and then this new one here just hit a 3.9 a short time ago. I'm going to send it back to you guys, though, to talk a little bit more about this earthquake.
Yeah, we're actually, Mark, going to get out to Ashley Pinnock. She is in Ramona, which is also East County, San Diego, and not far from the epicenter. Ashley, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know that it's probably been a bit of a morning for you. Can you describe what the quake felt like?
Yeah, I was sitting there and I was watching my son. He was just sitting there playing real quiet, and it felt like my entire roof was going to collapse. We have a large beam that runs through the center of our house, and I started to hear something cracking, and that's when I started screaming at everybody to get out. Because I was terrified. Eventually we figured out that it was just the wall that was cracking and not the beam, thank God. But that's what I thought was going to fall on my head, so I was just like, I have to get out of the house.
And we are, I think, are just looking at some video that you sent in from your home security system showing you with your baby saying, you got to get out, get out, get out. And, you know, I'm a mom, and I think that whenever something like this happens, our first thought is, you know, protect our children. Can you kind of describe what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I didn't want anything to fall on him. I didn't want, you know, the windows to shatter or something crazy. And all I could think was, if I don't get out of here and this does fall on our head, we're done. And that's a scary feeling.
Thank you for joining us. This is Kalina Estrinos hopping in here. I'm so impressed by this video. You worked so quickly to grab your kiddo and get out of there as safely and quickly as possible. It didn't even look like it started shaking before you immediately had your motherly instincts jump in and get out of there. How are you feeling right now? How's your family feeling right now?
We're all still pretty shook up. I'm still shaky. The adrenaline that runs through your body during these kind of things when, you know, you don't know what's going to happen, it just makes you so nervous. And I still can't kick that feeling. You know, it's like every 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again?
Yeah, and I just got a message from a friend of mine who lives in Escondido, and she just said, hey, I just felt another one, and I ran outside. Are you inside your home right now, or are you outside?
Yes, we're all inside right now, and we did feel that one. I was sitting here waiting on the phone, and we felt it, and my fiance came in, and he has the baby right now. He seemed very kind. And so we're all kind of just waiting on edge to see if it's going to happen again, and I think that's really what's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and you mentioned, did the quake crack your ceiling? Have you looked at the damage?
It did, yes. We actually have, right above our fireplace, it cracked the drywall going up to the ceiling.
And I'm assuming you lived there for a while. Have you ever had any other quakes do that kind of thing, or has this been the worst that you felt?
This has been the worst that I've felt since I've been here. We've been here for about 6 years.
Oh, okay. And are you a native Californian?
Yes, my whole life.
Okay, so you're used to, I mean, we're kind of used to this, but whenever you have a quake like this come around, in fact, Paul Diano, our meteorologist, pointed out that this area, this epicenter, has not had a quake above 5.0 since 1910. So especially the people who have lived where you live in Ramona, East County, you know, Julian, those areas for a long time, this definitely, you know, got them going because they haven't had something this severe. Did you feel the one yesterday?
We did, yes, and I didn't think that it was going to be any form of a precursor to what we felt today, and it did definitely make us realize that, you know, since we don't have these large quakes like this very often, that we didn't even really have a plan. You know, it was grab the baby and run outside, and that was it.
And you know, your baby, I know this is probably a really silly question, but when you took your baby out of the crib, how was your baby doing? Did you know, he or she have any reaction? Were you just, you know, holding your baby to make sure they were calm and okay? Or can, you know, we usually count on children to just think of everything as an adventure. So did anything even register?
He is so funny. He actually, when we got outside, his head was on my chest because it probably spooked him a little bit, you know, that I picked him up and just started running like a crazy lady. And by the time we got outside, he was all smiles.
Aww.
He just kept showing all his new little teeth and, you know, super happy. And so he had no idea what was going on. He was just like, okay, fun ride, I guess.
Well, and what
Fun
really,
little trip outside.
What strikes me about the video, I don't know if you were watching TV, if you're just kind of staring off in space, but you look like kind of so content just sitting there on the couch, like, oh, it's just another Monday at 10 a.m. And you just, right there, you're just up on your feet, you grab that baby, and you go running. And it just goes to show how quickly our lives can change. Thankfully, you're okay, your baby's okay, you're home, aside from the crack in it is okay. Did you get a warning on your cell phone? Are you signed up for those alerts?
I don't think that I did. I know that I think my fiance did. But yeah, it was so fast. You know, I think we heard it a little bit before it got here.
You know, quick question about the video. I think I saw a cat running across the screen, going to a different room. How's your cat?
Oh my goodness, she's fine. And that's what I had been watching like two minutes before. She was in there playing with the baby, and they're cute. They're little besties. And, you know, she had just gotten out because he was getting a little abusive, and she was like, I'm tired of playing with you. And so she was sitting on the couch, and it scared her.
Aww.
Yeah, but no warning. Sometimes they say animals can like sense that a quake's coming, but you didn't notice any different behavior in her.
No, not at all. She was I mean, maybe. She was with the baby for probably a good 45 minutes playing with him. He was playing with his balls. They were both sitting in there playing with all his toys. And normally she doesn't want to stick around him too often, you know, because he pulls tails and the whole thing.
Yeah, he's a kid. It's okay. I feel like looking back at this video over and over again, you and the cat had the same instincts to just run the second the camera started shaking, and you guys just like bolted out of there.
Got out of there. Well, the good news is we're hearing now from the mayor of San Diego, and the mayor, Todd Gloria, saying there is no known visible or major damage to the city so far, and I'm in communication with local, state, and federal officials. And of course, the same thing was echoed here in LA, that we had no damage. The fire department kind of gave us the all clear there. But you, of course, have the crack there, so there might be some superficial damage inside homes. We saw a liquor store with bottles on the ground that had fallen off the top shelf. But all in all, I mean, I hate to say that, you know, we got lucky this time, because that implies, you know, there will be a time that we aren't lucky. But, you know, that's what Dr. Lucy Jones and seismologists always tell us, that the big one, it's not a matter of, you know, if, it's a matter of when. And let me ask you, because watching you on that video really jump up, are you going to do anything differently in terms of your plan to be prepared for another earthquake?
I think it's really, for me, is looking around the property and finding where would be the safest place to go, because we don't have as many places to like shelter in. And as I was saying before, we have a huge beam that runs through the center of our house that makes me nervous, because if that were to fall down, that's a life or death situation. So, you know, it's really just finding outside where's the safest place to go, not around trees, making sure that all the kids are out of the house. How fast can you do that? And that's, you know, when something like that is happening, especially if, you know, my other children were in school, they wouldn't have been in school. I don't know how fast I would have been able to grab all of them at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
Very good point.
Well, Ashley Pinnock, we're so thankful that you were able to hop on a call with us and talk with us. We're glad you're okay. Great instincts, and we really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. We want to get to CAL FIRE Captain Mike Cornett joining us right now. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been covering, this earthquake throughout the morning, the second after we heard it hit around 10:08 this morning. We do know that fire department tends to go in earthquake mode when it comes to when an earthquake hits. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys have gone through so far? Anything that you might be hearing for our area or elsewhere from your colleagues?
Yeah, we're in constant communication through our dispatch center with all the other dispatch center region-wide. We do have implemented our earthquake plan, so all of our fire engines and apparatus are outside the building. The crews are going around right now to see if there's any hazards, any damage to any buildings, or anything that needs to be mitigated by the fire department. So we are active right now in the community. We have received several aftershocks, so our firefighters are on a heightened sense of awareness right now.
But so far, have you heard of any damage at all? Or are you hearing of any of that? Or you guys are still looking into everything?
No, I'm up in the Julian area right now. I happened to be up in the area when the earthquake struck. So we have had our crews go out and check all the different areas, and so far we haven't found anything, thankfully.
Wow. So what was it like for you since you were there? You were in the location where it hit in Julian. Can you walk us through what it felt like for you?
Yeah, I've been in San Diego County all my life, so I've lived through quite a few earthquakes, and I could say that this is probably one of the strongest earthquakes I've felt in a very long time. I was in a building in a school. We were doing a presentation in there. We all knew to get down, kind of duck underneath the tables, and once that hazard passed, we exited and made sure that all the everybody was accounted for and safe, and then they could move forward with making sure that the buildings and everything else was good to go.
And let me ask you, I always know that this is a good time when people are listening and they're rattled to talk to them about earthquake preparedness. And I know that so many of us are woefully unprepared, even though we know the risk is there. Can you take this time to let our viewers know what they should have on hand to be ready for when that big one strikes?
Yeah, I would say it's like any type of natural disaster. We want to make sure that we have 72 hours of supplies ready. So we want to have that go bag ready, that we can take it with us if we need to evacuate. A big thing for earthquakes, especially in the middle of the night or if you're in your bed, is to keep some slippers or sandals next to your bed, because you never know if that earthquake's going to break the glass in your window, and then you have to walk through that glass. So you want to make sure that you have something to cover your feet. You also want to make sure that you have flashlights and gloves and anything that you would need to keep you safe through that event in up to 72 hours.
You mentioned that you were at a school giving a presentation. You had kids in the classroom too, right?
Luckily, the kids weren't there. We were talking to the staff about some different safety topics, and this just happened to happen. But the staff acted very quickly, and it was great to see that some of our educators, even though they're not emergency responders, were able to identify that hazard, take command of the situation, and make sure that we had accountability of everybody.
And, I think it's important to point out, too, because a lot of people may not realize this. If there were a really big quake with lots of damage, lots of injuries and deaths, you guys would not be able, it's not like someone can just pick up the phone and call 911 and say, hey, I cut my foot on glass, I need some help. Yeah. People are going to have to essentially be self-sufficient for a little while.
Yeah, and it's going to take some time for the first responders and the firefighters to make sure that they're safe too, to be able to do their job, and then not only do their job, but then get to your residence or wherever you're at. So there might be hazards in the road. There might be other 911 calls that happen at the same time. So preparedness and having those evacuation supplies, those first aid supplies, and being ready to be self-sufficient potentially for a couple hours after.
How long do you guys stay on scene after an earthquake of this magnitude happens?
Well, we keep our fire trucks out until we get an all clear from our dispatch. We go out to our communities and do what we call a windshield survey. So we're making sure that we're looking at all the businesses and the buildings, going through the residential areas, seeing if there's any damage to the structures, seeing if there's any hazards like trees in the road or power wires down or anything like that. I know that the engine up here in Julian, I saw them over at the school, so they were making sure that the kids were safe. And then they went through the town to make sure that our residents were safe as well.
And can you speak to the fact, because I think so many of us, we hear, 5.2, which is a considerable quake, but, we don't see a lot of damage. Do you think that really speaks to, how our buildings are built?
Yeah, and I know that the building codes have adapted to new earthquake regulations, and as we and technology progress, we continue to progress our building codes, and so I do believe that's one of the factors that we haven't seen any damage. I know Julian is a very old mining town here, so it has survived many earthquakes through its time, but thankfully there is no damage in Julian as of right now.
Well, that's always good to know. I do. Speaking on that, I do feel like there's a huge difference from when I was a kid, feeling the earthquakes and the big ones that I remember versus now, where we do have so many different things that have been put into place when it comes to our buildings and how they can, react and absorb the actual earthquake. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, and we appreciate you joining us. I know that when this sort of thing happens, the fire department, CAL FIRE, all the different agencies are so busy. So we appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us, and we're glad that it sounds like everything is okay. We did speak with a woman who said that it caused a crack in her ceiling, so we might see kind of, superficial damage like that, but it sounds like no reports of major damage, major injuries, and for that we are very grateful.
We are too here at CAL FIRE and in San Diego County Fire, and we're going to continue to serve the community and make sure that we mitigate any hazards and protect the lives.
All right. Well, CAL FIRE Captain Mike Cornett, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get over to Paul Diano now for a look at what you've been tracking for this earthquake. You kind of walked us through some of the aftershocks we've been feeling and what people need to know about this particular earthquake.
Yeah, we'll kind of set the stage geographically first, then we'll get to some of the information, including talking about the Elsinore fault, which is a fault we don't talk about much. We are today. This is a list of the earthquakes that have happened over the past week, magnitude 2 or larger. You can clearly see a concentration in and around eastern and inland San Diego County. We'll get a little bit closer. The red dots, earthquakes that have happened over the past 1 hour. So from 10:46 to right now, there are 2 aftershocks that have happened over the past hour. A lot of yellow dots and a few big yellow dots. The bigger the dot, the bigger the earthquake. We had that magnitude 5.2 quake at 10:08. Guys, it sounds like I'm going back to you.
Okay,
right, Paul. Thank you. I do believe we might have Linda Rangel on the phone right now. Linda, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hi,
Yes,
it's Kalina and Christine. I know Amy had mentioned earlier that she reached out to a friend of hers. This is my friend Linda.
Oh, this is your friend Linda.
This is my friend Linda. She went to San Diego State. She lives in Escondido right now. And I had messaged you after I heard of the earthquake because I know you're not too far away from Julian, Ramona, you're familiar with the area. So can you just walk us through what you felt when it started shaking?
Yeah, so I live in the unincorporated rural area of Escondido. So we have a ranch house and then a second ADU structure that has a loft where I have an office that I work in. So I was just working, and I think people said that an alert went out, but I don't think there was enough time for me to actually get an alert. I was just working, and all of a sudden everything kind of started shaking. And because it's a pretty sizable structure, it was making a lot of noises and creaking. And my instinct was to just leave the building. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but I didn't have any shoes on. I left my phone behind. I just got up and ran out. And since we live in kind of a country area, we have a pretty sizable clearing that I kind of ran out to because I wasn't sure how long it was going to last, but it
has been a long time since I've felt an earthquake, so it definitely spooked me enough to get out.
You know, and we were talking earlier about being California native. She's from California as well. So I know, Linda, you're used to it. I know you have kids too. Were they with you? Were they in school? What can you tell us about what the school decided to do if they were in school? I know your husband's a teacher too.
Yeah.
Can you give us any insight on that?
So my husband's on staff at Mission Hills High School in San Marcos, and my kids are at a local daycare and at a local elementary school. So immediately once I felt safe enough to go back in and get my phone, I called my husband, and he was still under his desk. They were still being advised to stay under their desks. And then while I was speaking with him, the PA system, they were alerted to evacuate. So I know they evacuated for a little while. I called my children's school, and the kids were spooked, but thankfully at the daycare, they checked the structure and everything seemed okay. So the kids went back in, and then I think with the elementary school as well, they let us know that they checked and everything was okay and that they were going to go ahead and let the kids resume classes. But I imagine for my kids, they've never experienced that, so I'm sure they were scared.
Yeah, and I mean, I think kids these days, like me growing up in San Diego, we had two kind of drills, right? We had like a fire drill, we had an earthquake drill. Now the kids also have like, you know, school shooting drills and all these other different drills and, you know, evacuation drills. And I think sometimes we forget that we do live in earthquake country. We become kind of like immune to it. And now we're looking at some security video of different people's homes. And you can really see, you know, my mom and dad live in Del Mar still. And my dad was home, and he said that it's one of the worst he's felt. And they've lived in San Diego since the early 60s, mid 60s. And when you look at this footage, we can see what he was describing to me was it was more of a shaking. A lot of times we feel like a rolling motion or a quick jolt. I imagine the reason why you went all the way outside is because it was a shaking that just wasn't really ending.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a sister-in-law and brother-in-law that live in a condo in downtown San Diego, and they're on the 5th floor, and for them it was more of a rolling. Their whole building was kind of slowly rolling, but I know they felt it all the way down there. So
they felt it
the shaking,
all the way up.
I've been in San Diego for a while, and I haven't had experience an earthquake like this level in a long time. And then I felt a little bit of an aftershock quite a bit after I decided to go back into my main house to get some coffee, and felt the aftershock, and the roof kind of started making a weird creaking sound. So again, I ran outside again because it scared me again. I was like, I'm not taking my chances.
It's probably a good thing. I know you mentioned the creaky sound, and you live kind of in, you know, in a ranch area. There's a lot of land right around you. Did you kind of walk around the house to see if there was any damage, or just kind of spooked about what happened?
Yeah, no, I walked around to make sure I didn't see any cracks and that everything looked okay. And we live near kind of a hillside that has a lot of boulders, and it's a easement area to preserve the naturalness of the area. So I just kind of looked around to make sure I didn't see any sort of boulders dislodge or anything that could be problematic, because if they roll down, our house is sort of on the bottom. So yeah, I just surveyed our pool, make sure I didn't see any cracks in the pool. But yeah, those were some of my main concerns.
Well, we're so glad you're okay, and thank you so much for joining us and letting us talk to you about everything. Glad your kiddos are okay, your husband's okay, and, you know, stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks so much, ladies. Take care.
Well, we continue with the breaking news right now. A 5.2 earthquake near Julian in San Diego County rocked parts of Southern California this morning.
With shaking also being felt in the Inland Empire, Los Angeles County, Orange County, and there have been at least 7 aftershocks.
I want you to take a look at this video here showing the shaking inside of a home. This video was posted on social media. We've been seeing different videos being posted showing the shaking, showing some items that have, you know, dropped, and people's reactions like this one.
This poor mom.
That shaking. I know. She did a great job, though,
she did.
Making sure her kid was okay.
Yeah, she just went right for that baby, and then and you see the cat go after her, and then her husband follows suit. We want to get out to Assignment Desk Manager Mark Liu. He has more, including what Dr. Lucy Jones had to say this morning about the quake. Mark?
Yeah, so Christine, Kalina, lots of data coming in from the U.S. Geological Survey about this quake. The primary one, 5.2, happened about 10:08 this morning. There's been a swarm of aftershocks, including a 3.9 that happened just about 30 minutes ago. Let me give you an overview of where this is all happening. Come out to my screen. I'm going to show you data straight from the U.S. Geological Survey website. Okay, so the city of San Diego, down here, this is our major landmark, and about 40 miles to the northeast, this is the earthquake swarm that we're talking about here. The primary earthquake was the one that I highlighted in blue here. That's right in the community of Julian, a 5.2 at about 10:08. All of these orange ones around that you see to the north, that's an aftershock swarm that has been about the last 2 hours, most of them in the twos, high twos. And then this one right here was a 3.9 just about 30 minutes ago, about 23 minutes past the hour. This one down here to the south of the primary quake, that was yesterday, 3.3, so very likely a foreshock. Now, looking at this bit of data here, this is very interesting. It shows just how far and wide the earthquake was felt. All of these little boxes, they look like grains of sand across Southern California, are all instances of people reporting feeling this earthquake. Now, the blue boxes all through Southern California here, this is all considered light to very light shaking. Now, as we go down into the San Diego area, we're going to see something we haven't seen in a while. We've seen some yellow and greens here, which is moderate to strong shaking. And then right at the epicenter, there's actually some orange boxes which report people feeling very strong or severe shaking. Now, whenever there's an earthquake, I go to this page, and also Paul Diano over in the Weather Center, we immediately start putting our heads together because he has great access to data over on his computers in the Weather Center. And he noticed something before I did, that there are actually some reports of people feeling it in Phoenix. There are a couple of reports here, 4 right there. The people said that they felt it in the Phoenix area. And then if we zoom out even further and go up into Las Vegas, Nevada has 4 reports as well of people who said they felt this quake. And then over to the west, we see as far west as Santa Barbara and Lompoc. There's a very light shaking report right there in Lompoc, which is quite distant from the epicenter. Now, this swarm of aftershocks and the primary quake was discussed on a Zoom meeting with seismologist Lucy Jones. Take a listen to what she had to say about this one.
Every earthquake could be a foreshock to something bigger. We haven't found any characteristic that says this is or will or won't be a foreshock. Essentially, a foreshock is a main shock that happened to have a really big aftershock. There was a foreshock to this earthquake. There was a 3.5 yesterday afternoon. The chance that this 5.2 would itself be a foreshock to something bigger is still the same. It's about 5% chance. So it means, 19 out of 20 times what you're seeing is the biggest one. 1 out of 20 times it's followed by something bigger.
Now, Governor Gavin Newsom says he has been briefed on this incident. The California Governor's Office of Emergency Services is working with local agencies to assist with any possible damage, but we don't know of any damage beyond things being knocked off the shelves. We saw that video in Julian of the liquor store with the bottles knocked over, and of course that woman who rushed out of her living room during that quake. We don't know of any reports of any injuries. That's really the best news to hear about this, but I will say that one thing that is important for people transiting through Orange County into San Diego on the Metrolink lines, Orange County line train 608 from San Clemente to Oceanside is currently suspended because they want to check those tracks. If you remember, Kalina and Christine, those are the tracks that run right by the beach. And previously in 2022, there was some landslides and rock slides there that closed the tracks. So they're going to walk those tracks to make sure that there is not any sand or rocks that could impede a Metrolink train going through there. But thankfully, no reports of any severe damage either in Julian at the epicenter or really anywhere else out throughout Southern California.
And I remember working down there in San Diego, and that's one of the spots that if anything happened weather-wise, we were always sent to those train tracks because of the landslides, because of the rain, because of the damage that could happen. So it's no surprise that they have to go ahead and inspect that particular area.
And they have put some mesh up there now that's really kind of controlled the landslide that's coming down because, if you live, I'm from that area, I'm from the coast, and, those hillsides are not, they're eroding, they're moving a lot. It's kind of like tough sand more than it is like an actual hill. But the video you're seeing there is the a liquor store where some bottles came off the shelves, but we'll see a mom pick up her baby and run out of there. She did say there was a crack in her ceiling. So while we haven't had any major damage, any major injuries we could see people having some impacts to their homes. In fact, years ago, the Northridge quake, of all quakes, actually cracked my parents' pool all the way down in San Diego. So you never quite know how it's going to impact the homes and the buildings there. But thankfully, it looks like everyone is okay.
Yeah. And, you know, we've been talking about Julian just as, you know, a location itself. It's a small community. We've been saying a lot all morning. It has a population of about 1,700 people. It's a mountain town. You know, people are known. I remember when I was working down there, I just go up there to, you know, get the fresh air, look at the scenery, travel along Main Street, you know, eat the apple pie like Christine and Amy were talking about earlier. So it's a very quiet town. This is probably the most action they've gotten in a very long time because not a lot happens in that area in particular. So again, we're going to keep you updated throughout the morning when it comes to this earthquake. We have Amy Johnson now getting situated to take over. But this again is rocking the San Diego County area. You know, more than 38,000 people reporting that they felt this earthquake when it hit just after 10:08 this morning. It was downgraded to a 5.2 earthquake. So many people are so familiar with San Diego in general and just so familiar with this particular area too. So we'll continue our coverage right now with Amy Johnson.
This is KCAL News, Los Angeles.
Now at noon, we continue to follow breaking news. A 5.2 earthquake near San Diego this morning with shaking felt across Southern California. Hello and welcome to KCAL News at noon and streaming on CBS News Los Angeles. I'm Amy Johnson. We do want to begin with the breaking news. That 5.2 earthquake near Julian in San Diego County rocked parts of Southern California this morning just after 10 o'clock, about 10:08. With shaking being felt in the Inland Empire, Los Angeles County, and Orange County, there have been at least 7 aftershocks. Assignment Desk Manager Mark Liu has more, including what Dr. Lucy Jones had to say this morning. Mark?
Yeah, that's right, Amy. We've been covering this earthquake all morning here at the desk, gathering a ton of data from the U.S. Geological Survey website. This was a 5.2 magnitude earthquake, initially reported as a 6.0, but then downgraded after being reviewed by a seismologist. Happened at about 10:08 this morning in the community of Julian. That's about 40 miles to the northeast of San Diego. No reports of any major damage yet or injuries, but thousands of people felt it, and we certainly saw it on our KCAL Seismocam. Let me show you that right now. This is video of that waveform. You can see there all 5 sensors, Anaheim, Long Beach, Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and San Diego felt this magnitude 5.2 quake just after 10 this morning. And it really registered all across Southern California. In just a second, I'm going to show you just how far and wide this quake was felt, even into other states and into Mexico as well. Now, if you come out to my screen, I'm going to give you a better idea of where this was located. This is the U.S. Geological Survey website, and I'm going to zoom in on this cluster here. But first, let me first identify what we're looking at here. This is the city of San Diego, and it's 40 miles to the north here in the community of Julian right here. If we zoom in, this dot right here, that was the main quake, 5.2, as I said, just after 10. These orange dots all around here in this area, these are aftershocks, including one just about 45 minutes ago, a 3.9. That's the largest aftershock we have seen so far. Then there was this one. This was actually yesterday, a 3.3, possibly a foreshock. Now, really, just to give you an idea of just how far and wide this was felt, take a look at the Did You Feel It shake map. All of these tiny, tiny little squares, these are all examples of people who self-reported to the U.S. Geological Survey that they felt it all across Southern California. Blue indicates light shaking. Green, you start to get a little bit heavier as we go through Riverside County down here. And as I move into the San Diego area, yellow is strong shaking. So we can see just to the west of the epicenter and down here in San Diego, there's some reports of strong shaking. And then, of course, right here in the center of your screen, if I zoom in, you're going to see there are some people that reported very strong shaking, severe shaking right here in an area called Harrison Park. Now, Paul Diano over in the Weather Center, whenever there's an earthquake, we put our heads together, start gathering data. He noticed that there were people in the Phoenix region who said they felt the earthquake here, here, and here. And then to the north as well, in the Las Vegas, Nevada area, we've got reports up there. At least 4 people wrote into the U.S. Geological Survey that they felt it in the Las Vegas area. And then all the way to the west, if I zoom out and go over here into Lompoc, There's actually one person right there in the Mission Hills area of Lompoc that felt it as well. So tens of thousands of people, certainly through Southern California, reported that they had felt this. Now, seismologist Lucy Jones talked about this earthquake and the foreshocks and the aftershocks on a Zoom meeting a short time ago. Let me play some of what she had to say.
Every earthquake could be a foreshock to something bigger. We haven't found any characteristic that says this is or will or won't be a foreshock. Essentially, a foreshock is a main shock that happened to have a really big aftershock. There was a foreshock to this earthquake. There was a 3.5 yesterday afternoon. The chance that this 5.2 would itself be a foreshock to something bigger is still the same. It's about 5% chance. So it means, 19 out of 20 times what you're seeing is the biggest one. 1 out of 20 times it's followed by something bigger.
Yeah, let's hope this is the 19 out of 20 times. This was the biggest one that we're going to have today. Now, this is video from a liquor store called Mountain Spirit Liquor in Julian. You can see this is an example. I'm sure it happened all over that community of things being knocked off shelves. In this case, it was bottles of liquor all over the floor. So there's going to be some cleanup here. But again, no injuries reported in Julian. We are hearing from other people that lived in the area as well. They have some cracks in their walls and ceilings. Certainly, this is a common thing for homes in Southern California. I doubt there's virtually a home anywhere in Southern California that doesn't have some kind of cracks or small cracks in their foundations from earthquakes like this. But LA County Fire, LA City Fire, and San Diego County Fire so far reporting no reports of any injuries, which is great. Amy, the governor, has been briefed on this earthquake. He has activated the governor's Office of Emergency Services to work with any local authorities that need any help. And one note that I want to say, Orange County Train Line 608, which is that train line that runs between San Clemente and Orange County right along the beach. Right now, that train track is closed, because that is right there on the shore, and at times there has been problems with either sand or rocks during earthquakes getting on those train tracks, so they've suspended service to walk those train tracks to make sure there's nothing on the tracks from this earthquake. I'll keep monitoring this and let you know if anything changes here, but thankfully this may just be an earthquake that we all felt, didn't really experience any damage or injuries, which is good news here in Southern California. I'll send it back to you, Amy.
That is the best news, Mark. Thanks so much. About 30 minutes ago, we spoke to Ashley Pennick, a mom who lives in Ramona in the San Diego County Estates, right near the epicenter, about the fear and her first reaction, which was also caught on her home security camera. Let's listen in.
Yeah, I was sitting there and I was watching my son. He was just sitting there playing real quiet, and it felt like my entire roof was going to collapse. We have a large beam that runs through the center of our house, and I started to hear something cracking, and that's when I started screaming at everybody to get out. Because I was terrified. Eventually we figured out that it was just the wall that was cracking and not the beam, thank God. But that's what I thought was going to fall on my head, so I was just like, I have to get out of the house.
And we are, I think, are just looking at some video that you sent in from your home security system showing you with your baby saying, you got to get out, get out, get out. And, I'm a mom, and I think that whenever something like this happens, our first thought is, protect our children. Can you kind of describe what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I didn't want anything to fall on him. I didn't want, the windows to shatter or something crazy. And all I could think was, if I don't get out of here and this does fall on our head, we're done. And that's such a scary feeling.
All right, we're going to get some more on the science behind the quake with meteorologist Paul Diano. Paul?
Yeah, this is an area that doesn't typically see bigger earthquakes like this. This happened along the Elsinore Fault, which runs through Lake Elsinore, hence the name. Runs from El Centro all the way north to Chino Hills into our viewing area. It actually runs and parallels the Santa Ana Mountains in eastern Orange County. The last big earthquake along this specific fault was a magnitude 6 115 years ago. So a magnitude 5.2 happened on that fault today. Now, how often does this happen? Let's look at the entire state of California. We get a magnitude 5 or stronger in California 2 or 3 times a year. It averages about 2.5 occurrences per year. We just had one of them this morning in San Diego County. Now, the big ones, the damaging ones, magnitude 6.5 or stronger, that only happens 1 time on average every 4 years. Thankfully, that did not happen this time. That said, This is the strongest earthquake in the state of California since August 9th of last year, which was also a 5.2 magnitude along the Grapevine in southern Kern County. We've already seen 8 aftershocks of 2.5 or higher, the ones that you would actually feel in that area. And as with most earthquakes, as Dr. Jones had stated, there's always the chance it is a foreshock. The highest chance is right after the earthquake. It's about 5%. We are already down to, statistically speaking, a 1% chance of that happening, which is good news. Typically, if that were to happen, it would happen within minutes after the quake, and we've now coming up on about almost exactly 2 hours since this earthquake happened. Take a look at our forecast. Things are certainly changing. We'll have that, Amy, coming up in about 10 minutes. Back to you.
All right, Paul, thanks so much.